we so desire to do that. So I'll start out with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you stay standing for a prayer, please. Lord, we thank you for your grace. We lift our council and staff leadership before you, granting us wisdom and integrity in serving our city. We thank you for the gift of our citizens who have joined hands and hearts for the betterment of our community. We ask for your blessings in continuing to build strong bridges of communication between us all. Lord, I am grateful for your hands of healing and for all the prayers and support you have given me during these past weeks by so many people. In your name, amen. Amen. Okay, before we start the work session, I just feel I need to say a few words to the public that might be listening. I want to take this moment to thank people for all their prayers, their cards, and their flowers. I thank you, Joanne, Vice Mayor, for taking over the meeting for me. Thanking you, well, it doesn't seem like enough, and I really, truly appreciate all the wishes from so many people. I just want you to know the fast service of Southwest Ambulance and the initial care given to me by the West Valley Hospital was exceptional. I'm grateful to the hospital for referring me to the specialists at Barrow Neurological Institute. And you know what, guys? We are so fortunate in Goodyear to have such great access to health care, whether it be in our city or outside of our city. So, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Council. Okay, before we start in these presentations tonight, I'm going to take mayor privilege again. I'm having so much fun doing that tonight. It's nice to be back. We're going to start out tonight with the first one. It's going to be economic development. Now, I don't want to seem like this is going to be lecturing any of you, okay? But it might be. I want you to realize that these work sessions are not just for you. They're for the public. Not only the public that are listening via the internet, or public that asks for public records. So sometimes when something's presented to you, you go, oh, like I do, hey, we've heard that. That's old news. We don't need to hear that again. But we do need to hear it. And if you remember, the rule is, do you know how long it takes someone to remember one item? You need to repeat it 3 times. So when you're thinking about this and you're talking to the public, that just gives them another review of what we've done and what we're going to be doing. So secondly, I know you've asked for shorter presentations. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes a presentation takes more slides for that department, and we as a council need to be patient. That's what we're elected for. When we got elected, it didn't say you were only going to spend 2 hours at a council meeting. It didn't give you a time frame. So I just want to remind you, when we started this back when I was elected in 2005, we were here till 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So if we all of a sudden get our energy back in the city and start building, you're going to be here. So you might as well warm up that seat and get used to it and kind of work into it. So that's what I'm asking you tonight, is patience, okay? All right, with that, let's go to the first item, and it's economic development strategic update, including current retail, office, industrial assessments, overall objectives, industry targets, current and proposed initiative. Paula Ilardo. Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try to keep this down because I need 2 hands. So tell me if you can't hear me. Is it okay now? Is it okay? Okay.
I guess the telling point is the people out there. So,
right. Does it sound the same back there?
Yes, they've got their thumbs up.
All right. As we begin this presentation, I'm going to first quickly go over what the objectives of economic development are, the current business environment, the investment tools that we use to incent business to come, what the 10 key initiatives or basically projects the department is working on, including our target industries. And basically, we will need policy direction on some of the points, which I'll ask you for at the end, or we may be doing it all throughout the presentation. Basically, our objectives are pretty simple. The overall is to enhance business development, both large and small companies, to help increase the tax base of the city. We do this in 4 basic ways: with industrial and office recruitment, retail recruitment, Business retention and expansion, that means both retail and industrial, and with redevelopment in an area where we need it. So I'm going to start with the assessment of the business environment that we're in right now. We're going to talk about the number of jobs we've gained past 2 years, where we stack up with jobs per population versus other cities, unemployment comparisons versus other cities, and square footage and vacancy rates as well. In the past 2 years, we have basically, if you look at the green line, we brought 11 businesses. And if you look at the green line, it's a total of 2.4 million square feet we have either built, absorbed, or retained in the city. For capital investment of about $318 million and current employees of about 1,700, which with expansion, and it's anticipated it will go to about 2,400 in the next few years. We're also in red finalists for 4 different projects, 1 distribution, 3 manufacturing, and that would be, if we got them all, would be 1.2 million square feet, plus about 100 million in capital investment and the possibility of 500 more jobs. Now,
Just a minute. I think that takes a round of applause. Very good.
thank you.
Thank you, Paula, for your hard work, the whole team.
We have a great team. Yes, we do. It's diminished right now, but it will come back up again. The jobs to population ratio, I think, is very important, and I think we really want to look at that from a city standpoint. We are the 11th largest city in the valley. So I've looked at the other 10 cities that are larger than us. I didn't look at just West Valley cities or anything. I looked at the 10 who are higher than us. And so when you look at that, we rank 7th in the valley when it comes to the jobs per population ratio. And that's pretty good for a city of our size. And we're the highest in the West Valley. The unemployment rate, and I took it as of December of 2011, we're the 4th lowest unemployment rate in the entire valley, and 2nd lowest in the West Valley. We're constantly sort of tied with Peoria back and forth. But I think that's a really good rate at 5.5. If we looked at the average of the entire year, it was about 6 for the entire 2011. Now, we're going to go into a discussion on the square footage that's available. And before I did that, I wanted to show you basically how much we have in our city. Retail, we have almost 4 million square feet built. And we're at a 13% of vacancy rate, which is just about exactly where the county is with their 12%. Now, 4 million square feet is almost equivalent to 4 regional malls. Office space, we have 1.3 million square feet. That's not a lot. Because we don't have the greatest amount, we're only at 14% vacancy rate, where the rest of the county is at 20. So that is good. Points out that we could probably use more office pretty soon. From an industrial standpoint, we're in really good shape. We have 6 to 8.
I'm sorry, Paula, real quick. Even though we say 20% available in the county, I don't know, is that actually high or low? I don't know. I mean, these sound really low, but in real estate in general, I don't know if that's a low figure
or vacancy of office.
Yes.
It's pretty high right now.
20% is pretty high.
Yeah, it's more like 50. We'd go on 13 to 15 if it's a good
You would
time.
hope in a good economy you'd be below 10.
Okay, that's the question.
you.
I don't know what you base it off of. Thank you.
Thank you. Industrial, we have 6.5 million square feet, and here we're at the basically same vacancy rate as the rest of the valley. So if we start with retail, we see that back and these charts start in 2009, and basically the recession said it started at the end of 2007. These charts start in early 2009. So we started with 20% vacancy rate, which was even higher earlier, and more like 25. But you see that the county was pretty stable at about 11%, ending at about 12. All the rest of the 10 cities I looked at pretty much were grouped around that green line. We're the only one that was way up there with 40% vacancy, and look at how much we've absorbed over this 2.5-year period, and basically are down at the same vacancy rates as as the rest of the county and the other cities. Now, and the other thing I wanted to mention, the reason we were so high at that time is basically we had about 1.2 million square feet that were finished right at the beginning of 2008. That included the grant 500,000 for Canyon Trails, the Center Point, which was about 275,000 was finished, and about 400,000 square feet all along Astoria. So we had a lot of brand new retail at the time that the recession hit. So that's all that we had to absorb during the recession. Now, if you look at this square footage, basically they're ranked here by the total amount of square footage we have. So if you see that we're at the bottom, but even though we're 11th, we're not the last one. The key to look at on this is the square footage per population. The line in red shows us at 58.1 square feet of retail per capita, and that ranks us as 6th in the valley. The next slide shows us, you see that Scottsdale is first. I think we would all assume that when it comes to the amount of retail per population, followed by Tempe. So basically we rank 6th, which is very good for the size of our city and the amount of retail that we have.
Is it okay if I ask a question now, or
Sure.
wait till the end?
Sure.
Paula, you fine with that?
I just was wondering, because I noticed like it seems to we can absorb like the Total Wine and more the bigger ones, but I see a lot more, I guess, of the smaller. Like, do we differentiate what is open for retail at all?
No, the small and the large are all within the vacancy
all
figure.
lumped in. Okay.
Now, next we're going to look at office vacancy rates. As I said, ours is relatively low. We're just a little lower than the whole rest of the valley. And we've been fairly stable, and that hasn't changed much during the past 2.5 years. In this case, if you look at the red line and our square footage per population, in this case we rank 7th. And as this slide shows, number 1 again is Scottsdale, followed by Tempe, and then East Valley cities, and then Goodyear is 7th position. In industrial, again, here we are ranked at, we had 40% vacancy rate back in early 2009. At the beginning of the recession, we probably had about 2.5 million square feet because Amazon, if you go way back, we had the 600,000 square feet that Amazon took up. At the beginning of 2008 on this slide, basically we had about 2 million square feet that we needed to absorb. And if you look at all those businesses I showed you in the beginning, plus miscellaneous in a lot of different areas, basically that's all the square footage that we've absorbed to be back down where the rest of the county is. And again, the rest of the cities were grouped around that green line, not up at 40% like we were at the beginning. So we've done extremely well there. On industrial square footage, you look at the red line again, you see we rank 4th in the entire valley on industrial square footage per capita. As shown here again in this slide, where we have 97 square feet of industrial square footage per capita. So this is where we really shine. These are the areas in red that you see on this map are the areas that have all of the industrial square footage. Up north is the PV 303. This is the basically the employment corridor and the airport and the redevelopment zone. Down here's a lot of lands along Broadway and south of MC 85, and then over here the Duke property, and again Rubbermaid plant. So that's the red areas are where all our industrial is concentrated. And of the companies that we do have here, just so you know, we have about 4 companies that are over 500 employees. Our largest employer is Lockheed with over 900 employees. We have about 5 with over 250 employees, 6 over 100, and 5 over 50, and the rest would be under 50.
Paula, is this an up-to-date chart?
Yes,
Great,
it
thank
is.
you.
So as we look, Paula, on the other ones, though, I look at St. Gobain, some of our newer companies, they are projecting an increase, though, in employees. Is that correct?
Yes, for instance, Saint-Gobain is going in with about 20, and they project to be 50 in the next few years.
Okay.
I'm asked frequently about what kind of investment tools we use, and basically, in order to give incentives, one of the key things we do is we always first get a third-party economic assessment to learn what a company's direct tax benefit is going to be to our city. We can never, by law, give more incentive, value of incentive to a company than they're giving us in direct benefit into our coffers. Now, in addition to that direct benefit, there's the indirect benefit, which is based upon the employees of those companies and all their spending in the area, and the induced benefit based upon the company spending and vendors and all those people. So it's sort of like a ripple effect, like putting a pebble in a pond and you have all the ripple effects. We don't count those ripple effects. We only count the money that's directly comes to our city during the contract period that we have a development agreement with that company.
How, on that third-party assessment, is there about an average price you could say that those cost us when you do
About
them?
$1,500 per.
$1,500? Mm-hmm. And do you typically wait till you feel that, this looks like a project that's going to go somewhere that you...
Yes, we wait till the point that we're really working on a development agreement, and in order to finalize the development agreement, we have to plug numbers into the agreement from the assessment study. But we will wait. We don't spend the money until we pretty much know that company's coming. Okay, some of the types of investment tools we use the most frequently are the plan and permit fees, which is basically not an out-of-pocket expense, so to speak. It's really money transferred from our fund into, say, the community development fund for the inspections and the permit plan reviewers. The other one is waiving expedited costs. That usually we have double the cost for double the cost for half the time for expedited. In this case, sometimes we will waive that and we don't charge them for expedited, which basically doubles the value of the permits that they're getting. Foreign trade zones, we use that frequently, of course. Home purchase credits, where we've given them $3,000 for both home resale and new home sales. Job training we use mostly when the state no longer had a fund, but there are times that we may want to use this where we can supplement training that the state does. Sometimes, for instance, they don't pay for the employee while they're on the job for on-the-job training. Maybe at some point we might want to supplement and add that and say we would pay toward that type of training. The GIPLET is something that's only used in our redevelopment area, and that's something we use to attract CTCA. The military reuse zone is used only at our airport. We now have, as you know, city-owned land around our city center. When we attracted the universities, we did use that long-term lease for them. And then we've used improvement districts, of course, at the mall, and there's a possibility we might want to use improvement districts again, somewhere such as maybe Palm Valley 303, which is one owner of 1,600 acres, and they might be agreeable to do an improvement district on their land to put in infrastructure and improve the property.
Paula, can you explain what the GIPLET is and what it stands for? And then the second question is, we also still own the farm area at...
Yes.
Yeah.
Duncan Farms.
And how many acres?
I want to say 200. 44? Oh, way off. 44.
44 acres. And is it all south of Indian School?
40 acres south, 4 acres north.
Would you please talk in the microphone,
sorry.
please?
40 acres south, 4 acres north.
Yes.
Thank you.
Government property lease excise tax. I knew you'd ask what it stood for.
What does it mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
I'll explain it really simply. If you really want into great detail, we'll bring Harry back up, or we'll send you a sheet of paper. It's 8-year abatement on the real property tax, and then after that is over, a 9 to 25-year reduced real property tax. And it's not just a given number like the foreign trade zone is 75% reduction. It's dependent upon the values and property values at the time. So if you need more than that, because Harry might be able to explain it.
Harry,
in a
could
lot
you
more
come up
detail.
and explain that, please? Because I think this conversation took place long before they were on council, if you remember.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Government Property Lease Excise Tax Program because actually what happens is the government takes title to the property once it's improved, and so it becomes government property, which the government leases back to the organization, usually at a very nominal amount, just a few dollars a year or something. That's how the program works. And as Paul explained, there's an 8-year period on the real property tax, so the land and the building, not the personal property. So like, for example, CTCA is where we've used that. All their equipment, very expensive health equipment, is all on the tax rolls. But the building itself has an 8-year abatement for an 8-year period of time. And then the program can go up, the new modified program can go up to 25 years. Sometimes that's a benefit, sometimes it may not be. It just depends on the development and the established statutory tax rates, which are now under the new program reviewed each year. That may be more than what you want to know, but in essence, that's what it is.
Does that suffice?
Yep.
Would you like a printed copy of that? Okay.
No, that's far too much information.
We have an 8.5 by 11 description.
My follow-up question to that then is CTCA the only GIPLET that we have?
Currently, it is. In fact, the advantage, say, of using it, then a hotel came in across the street in December of 2009 during the height of the recession, and it did not ask or use a GIPLET. So the point is bringing something in a redevelopment area, trying to use that incentive to bring something that then attracts other property around it. So maybe for what we give up in real property tax on that one development will then bring other around it, and that's exactly what's happened with CTCA.
Okay, and we are the only ones giving up our tax. The schools aren't giving up
The
theirs.
Schools do give it up.
Oh, everybody.
So that's why the surrounding property around CTCA was so important, because school wasn't getting anything at that point really, because there was nothing developed on there. And so now that CTCA is there, that surrounding property is where you hope.
And this dialogue was done with the schools.
Yes.
So
And
we
as
never
Harry
leave
said,
them out.
We are getting the tax off of the personal property tax, which is a huge amount of tax for a company like CTCA.
May I ask one
Yes.
question? Paula, for the outlying area around CTCA, that the land they have now bought after they built their hospital, is that land included under the GIPLET?
No, it isn't.
So if they develop all of that, we would get the tax money from whatever is built.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
At this time they're considering in the future conference center, so that would be included in that. I mean, not included in under the GIPLET.
Yeah, they've talked about retail, hotel, conference center in that area. Any other questions while we're on this slide?
Right now, CTCA is in for an 18,000 square foot addition to the south of their building, so they are expanding right now.
Okay, foreign trade zone sites, as you've seen here. I think you've seen this slide a few times, possibly. These are the magnet sites that have been approved, these two, and then the one down here along MC 85 is in for approval, hasn't been approved yet. Basically, it's helped us attract 3 companies since its formation, Sub-Zero, SAS, and Dix. Suntech is now also going through applying for a foreign trade zone because the magnet zone which they're inside of hasn't been approved yet. But we did a user-activated site here at SAS. SAS is outside of any foreign trade zone where we were already entitling companies, but they wanted it for their individual site, and we approved that a while back.
Paula, didn't we recently see that? And I forget, there's a rule that if they are changing that way, that it was back to the school things, that they had to, maybe I'm getting wrong with foreign trade zones. Am I thinking of a different type of reuse? Where we just went over this a few months ago.
Was about a pilot agreement, possibly?
Pilot, that's what it was.
Okay, if there's
That's-
already an existing building with a company that goes into an existing building like SAS, that building is already on the tax rolls for the city and for the schools. That building will stay there. The assessor has, when they assess the building, even though they're giving a 75% discount down to 5%, 75% discount down to 5% assessed ratio, they have to drop the assessment on the entire building. They just can't do it in pieces. So therefore, then we will assess all of that long list of county irrigation districts, school districts. We will go ahead and assess them with what they really need and get a pilot agreement payment from the company that pays them for what's already on the tax rolls.
I couldn't remember pilot. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Sherry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to put you back to the giblet. That just sounds like something that comes out of a turkey to me. Now, I don't know if I got this right, but you said that the city owns the land,
Holds the land.
holds the land, so we don't own the land. So
Technically,
It's,
we do.
it's
Technically, we
conveyed
do.
to the city, and it's a lease back to,
what happens after the 8 or the 20 years expires? What happens to the land and the building on it?
after the term, it would be conveyed back to the owner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they will get their building back after the 8 or the 20 years or whatever they're set. Okay.
Yeah, and that was done under the old program. So the old program, that's a 40-year agreement at this time.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just 8 years.
Just when you said we owned it, I'm like, oh, what happens? So thank you.
So since after we did the CTCA for 40 years, then the rule changed, and now the length is maximum is 25.
Okay.
Okay, what you see here outlined in blue is the city's redevelopment area. So that is the only area that's allowable to use the giblet in that area. And also included in this map, you see in yellow is the airport outlined in red. The MRZ basically covers that area in red on the airport. And that reduces their personal real property taxes for about 75% for a 5-year period, and then also gives them a $7,500 income tax credit per employee, and reduces eliminates county and state sales tax on construction done within the MRZ. So it's definitely a benefit to a company. Helped us retain Lockheed Martin.
Didn't redevelopment areas also come into play with CDAC funding or other type of funding for, and that's more on home areas, but didn't that also come into play by saying that this was a redevelopment area?
Yes, that is an important part for the federal considerations. You can spend CDBG dollars in a redevelopment area.
Now, basically, there are 10 key initiatives that the Economic Development Department works on, and I won't go over these on this page, but one thing where you see the third one, investment zone, you might as well say investment/infrastructure zone. Okay, so first of all, we'll start out with our target industries. The key way we get most of our leads is through, I'd say, GPEC. With about that list that I showed you earlier, about 50% of those companies came through GPEC, and about 70 of our leads overall, even though some of them we don't end up landing, but those that we work with, and most of our site visits are people who come through GPEC. The next greatest one would be through the broker network and sometimes site consultants. Where we proactively market, we will attend trade shows based upon our targeted industries, and we budget about 6 to 8 trade shows a year, depending upon whether we really have the staff that can leave and go out for 2 or 3 days. After Paul left, we've cut a couple of them out just because we didn't have the staff to go out. But also, GPEC and the Arizona Commerce Authority go to about 40 to 50 trade shows around the country, and sometimes international, in order to they obtain leads that then they give to us and we work on throughout the years. We also will try to partner with local companies that are in the same businesses. For instance, we have a couple food manufacturers that are looking at us right now. When we get down to the real final stages, we might bring, say, someone like from Snyder's or from Poor Brothers to talk to them so that they might want to know about the productivity of our workforce or what the city of Goodyear's like to work with. So we have a relationship with those kind of businesses. With one of the distribution centers that's looking at us right now, they asked to talk to, I think, Macy's, Amazon, and one in another city to find out about the workforce and how productive it was. We also collaborate on, and we'll be working on collateral materials for these target industries. This is something we haven't done that much in the past, but we're going to try to concentrate on in the next year or so. These are the targets. The number one is global businesses. This is a big one for GPEC. Basically, it's based on foreign direct investment, and basically we have Scholler Arca Systems, Netherlands-based, Saint-Gobain from France, and Suntech from China. Aviation, aerospace, Lockheed is our biggest. We have some small engineering firms that work with defense contracts. At the airport itself, we have Aeroturbine, and Galaxy is a new maintenance and repair. It's not new. It's been at the airport, but they're expanding, and they're moving into Hangar 18. It's a good story. He started out of his garage, and so they're continually expanding. We work also on the implementation of the airport master plan, and I think we have a work session scheduled in March on the airport master plan itself, which is something that was adopted in 2007. And it's important to bring you all up to speed on that plan because a lot of work was done on it. We have to work with the city of Phoenix very closely on that. One of the keys is that most of the development is now on the east side toward Litchfield, and the master plan calls for the development of the airport on the west side, which is toward Bullard, which is one of the reasons why it's very important for us to work with Phoenix on how they're going to work on the airport master plan and how we are as well.
If I just may add something, this is the area that I often talk to all of you about the infrastructure. And just very quickly, when I was at the Conference of Mayors, there was a lot of discussion on big companies and corporations and so forth. And they just said in no uncertain terms, if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have broadband, if you don't have that conduit below the ground, you're dreaming. So as you look at this presentation tonight, I know all of you have certain things you want to spend our money on, but if we're talking about revenue and dollars and jobs to, in the end, afford us to be able to help in the Parks Division and all the other place, we need to get that in the ground. And we are just insufficient in that area. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. As we go on, healthcare, life sciences, bio, we have CTCA, Valley Hospital, Global Organics. We're partnering now with Avondale on what we call Bio 10, which shows a corridor that we can market when we go to bio programs. CTCA, West Valley Hospital, their future Children's Hospital, and Banner Astoria anchoring at the other end. So these are ways that we do proactively market to those targets. Of course, manufacturing, both high-tech and general, is a part of our main targets. Also sustainable solar. Another one is advanced business services, office and data centers. Everybody wants those. They're pretty high-tech. You need what Mayor was talking about. There you need the fiber and you need redundancy in order to attract these type of businesses. We do have National Oil Well Varca. It's basically a storage. It doesn't require as much as some of the others would. Food products, internet fulfillment. Also, internet fulfillment is important because we get sales tax off of internet fulfillment centers who sell to Goodyear as an end product. So we will get sales tax from them. So they are different.
Percentage
they're
of
different.
that? Do we have a percentage, or do we know any of the amount that we get from the local? I mean,
No, I don't think Joe would report that to us.
okay.
I think it's privileged information for the tax office.
Oh,
Quick question. It's my understanding on the internet fulfillment centers, unless they have a physical store here, we don't get sales tax on that. Is that true, Larry? So I mean, it's my understanding why not Macy's, but why Amazon located here is to get around the sales tax, because I guess California was trying to push for the internet sales tax. So I guess my question is if we're going to pursue any of those distribution centers as far as that, I don't think they're as lucrative as led to believe, unless they physically have to be located here, like a retail, like Macy's already is here. So I think we got to be careful till they straighten that out down at the federal side.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, Amazon, just for the record, is supportive of the federal efforts to tax everybody, but they're saying, darn it, you tax everybody before you tax us.
No, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying there's probably other businesses to pursue if we're looking for incentives than people just doing internet fulfillment. That's my concern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have looked at some, and if they would have, some of them have had stores here. I mean, if you get a TJ Maxx or something like that, that do internet fulfillment, we already have many stores here, and we have tried in Staples. We've gone after some of those. We didn't land them. They are different than distribution centers for that reason. Logistics and distribution are the same. Basically, that's where you're just moving product out of the warehouse in the area.
What was the, I just quickly saw the headline, something about Arizona sending Amazon a bill. What was that for tax? Or you can tell me later. I just didn't understand.
All I understood from it was that the state of Arizona had determined that they owed the state $53 million for conducting business in the state, and they sent a bill to them.
So we'll see Amazon's reaction to that. Okay, next initiative is university. Economic development is basically now taking the lead on university recruitment. It was done out of the mayor's office the last time. So we have to decide if we want to do university recruitment at this time. Do we proactively start it now? So this is up to the council to determine. If we do, we need to contract with probably Applied Economics, who did our previous higher education study, in order to make sure that we have that more up to date. It was 2004 when we did this before. We also use tri-advocates to help. This is a big job. I'm not sure that our staff can do it all alone. We probably would have to hire a consultant to determine the best sources to how to get these I'm saying RFP instead of RFI, which we did before, in order to try to get a response from these colleges where they're really giving us a proposal as what they also will bring to us, not just information on them. What do they propose? What's the benefit we're going to get out of them? We have basically we have marketing materials that I did for them before, which are still sound. We just need to update them a bit. And we need to determine the type of colleges that we're really going out for. Now, in the past, we really just talked about private liberal arts, and then all of a sudden we were talking about public and ASU. We need to determine if we're going for private, public, or both. Also, do we want just liberal arts? Our recommendation from economic development is that we seek colleges with degree programs that will help lift up our economic development strategy. We need schools that will give degrees in engineering, software technology, and engineering, electronic, and bio. I know I talked to ASU the last go-round, and as we walked out the door, and I said, any possibility you'd bring engineering instead of a liberal arts school? Because then I would more back you. But it was just liberal arts at that time. So,
although he did say to Joanne and I that they would consider that when the two of us put up a protest and said we wanted a school of engineering, so they did come back.
So they dangled the carrot.
They dangled it, but was still with a $50 million price tag. So,
okay. Also, at the time we went out before with the RFI, we didn't really offer the schools anything. Now we know we've got the land. We know how to do the long-term land lease if they really want a traditional campus. We can go out with our RFP offering more than we did before. Maybe we'd get a better response. We also have the agreement with Langford on the ability to develop that urban-style campus, provide them a builder. So, and we probably, though, we would have to enter into some sort of infrastructure in order to get anything there. There are no roads unless they go right on Goodyear Boulevard. We would probably have to look at water, sewer, and some roads if we're going to literally go out and try to seek universities now. So that's part of your decision. You'll have to know that that enters into it.
Joe?
Just real quick, I remember Paula a while back. We got the business community involved in some roundtable discussions to see, what they could do to try to help bring it, and also to try to determine what type of college do we want here. I've never been a big fan of liberal arts college, only because they're a dime a dozen, and I'm not sure in this new economy and in this new environment whether that's going to turn people out that'll actually be working. I'm kind of looking, if we do anything, something that when they finish, they go right into the workforce that adds to it. So. Again, I know we did do some things with the outside business. Did that just die? I'm not sure where that ended at any point in time. Gary was a part of that?
It was a task force that had been formed, and I think it basically died when the ASU proposition died. I think that's as far as I know, right?
That's correct.
Now, we have talked to Lockheed and asked them what type of, we know they have a relationship with George Washington University. We've asked what type of thing. They said they would love to see engineers graduate from the city. What their current engineers would need is more online. It's not that they're looking for a campus to go to as people who are already degreed and working, but to look for a college that they could actually recruit from would be great.
Yes, Bill?
Is this even, I'm going to say, is this even a viable attempt? Education is changing so much. There are many institutions that are offering a great number of online classes. NAU has located a capstone program at Astoria Mountain Community College. It appears as though the face of education is changing, and this may be, for lack of a better phrase, an old school approach for us to be seeking a hard campus in the city. And I would certainly hate to throw money at a university recruitment initiative if education as a whole is changing. That may be worth looking into before we even go down this road.
Well, I think that the colleges would be the best to tell us that, what they would be seeing as a future university or college in our town. I still believe that there will always be the need for a campus. I think that there will be a change, just as you're saying, but I still think for a city of our size that's only at 10% built out, it's a must. It's just part of the fabric of what our city can be. And now the question, back to the feasibility of the money currently that we have to play with, I guess it comes down to some of the priorities that we need to make. This priority has not changed for me, but some of the other priorities that we still have to look at with some of the infrastructure or some of the jobs that we want to bring online, we just have to figure out where is it in our priorities. And I know that, this comes with a price tag, and I know that kind of off-the-cuff discussion was, I want to say $30,000. Now, that may have changed if you're looking at other staff people or tri-advocates to help us. I don't know. But I think that's part of the priorities that we need to look at as we're going through that strategic plan and everything, is some of this, what's the price tag that's coming with it that we have to weigh out.
We can go back and look and see what it would cost basically to update the higher education and possibly talk to someone like a tri-advocates again or some other sources to see what their cost would be.
And what the city spent last time was $60,000.
Yes, sure. Councilman Loretano?
I think for me, anyway, this has always been a priority. I think it's very important. I agree with the Vice Mayor 100%. But I also think it ties into what the Mayor said, because the area that this would be is very close to the area where they need infrastructure, the high tech. If we're looking for a high tech engineering or computer sciences or biosciences, I think we can tie that into the infrastructure and maybe look at a partnership with, I know we talked about this, John, like a corporation looking for a headquarters and having them partner with a school and kind of like a two-pronged step, so we can get that and then get the infrastructure, and then that's going to bring the type of businesses. Hello? Yeah. Once we get the high-tech infrastructure in that area, that can make that whole corridor kind of stretch down. So for me, I think it's not a standalone. You have a university. I do agree. I don't think liberal arts is what I'm looking at, but I think you can make that a high-tech corridor and kind of plan that way. With you get the infrastructure that all these businesses want. You get those people there who can work in the businesses, and I think you've got. That's how Chandler started with Intel.
Yeah, you get corporate cooperation, partnerships.
Just want to make, I am absolutely 100% behind higher education. I don't want anyone to misinterpret my question about the facility as not being in support, because I agree it adds a huge importance to the community. I'm just questioning perhaps the model and making sure that we're going to do it wisely.
We need a plan, and we need to research this, and we need to come out from economic development side.
Right, we need to look into it. We're not the only city that's doing this. Mesa actually just landed a college.
Yes, they did.
And they have a big initiative to do that. Surprise does, Peoria does. It's on every city's radar right now.
Absolutely.
So if it's not the right time for us, you can tell us that. But we can look into it and see what it would take, and then you
I think
can
we
make a
need
decision.
to. I don't know what the right time is anymore with the economy the way it is. And I would hate to see us just bury something and not be looking into it, not be proactive if the opportunity arises. So is everybody agreement with that? We'll let them go ahead. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick add though too. I think a lot of it when we talk about priorities and we get into the next presentation on the actual operational and long range planning is we need a funding plan. How's this stuff going to get funded? I mean, you know, it's like anything else like you do at house. You have X amount of dollars, match your priorities, and where we get to. I mean, to me, they go hand in hand. You can't talk one without talking about the
I agree
other,
with you, and this is kind of a time where we kind of discuss the things that we would really like to have and what our goals are, so we know what we're trying to strive for. So I agree. It takes money to do this, and we'll just have to see as the time goes.
Okay, the next one will be, I'm going to talk about investment zones. In the airport, Bullard Avenue, we're calling this, we called it Bullard Avenue before, we're calling it now Airport Bullard Avenue Corporate Center Investment Zone. And this is really critical, because if you look at the map here, the blue line is the Bullard Avenue corridor. The lighter blue north of Van Buren has already been designed and pretty well completed. From Van Buren south, nothing really has been done. A two-lane road has been put in order to get people to the ballpark. This is a very unique area. It would take about $600,000 to design this road, and $6 million to build the road, and about $1 million to build this section of the road into the airport. The advantage and the reason that this is so important to us is that you have it anchored on this end by the mall, where if you have a lot of office and high-wage people, they can shop and eat at those, say, restaurants and support it during the week. And then you are also anchored by the airport. This has a lot in common with the Price Road corridor that you all have heard about, where Intel is in Chandler. It's also anchored just about the same place by the Chandler Fashion Square. The advantage we have is it is not anchored by an airport at all down there. And it's a bit longer. It's a couple miles. Is it 3 miles long?
Yeah, about 5.
Oh,
actually.
5 miles long. Or we have a
One or the
mile.
other.
So what we're doing is really hoping to improve this corridor. Now, what I'd like to do is go to video right now to show you what our vision is of the Bullard Avenue corridor, so you can understand what we're talking about. So I have to escape and.
And while she's doing that, I'll just mention our videographer, Laney, did this. And what we did was drive down Bullard, and then they superimposed driving down Price in Chandler, so you can see what it would look like. And it's just fantastic.
Yes, I'll thank Lainey for all the work that she did on this. Okay, this is standing in the middle of Bullard Road looking south at Van Buren, and imagine this on the corner rather than what you had saw before. One of the key things here is we need to make it look like a corporate campus. We may have to do this as a city. And without water, other corners may look like this, truly enhanced. Bullard, look at the median now. This is what it looks like driving down Bullard Avenue. This is what it could look like if we enhanced and had true heavy landscaping, even in the medians. Now, what we want to do here that's different than other places is greater setbacks, much heavier landscaping. We have about 30-foot setbacks in most areas. We're wanting 50 in this area, and using berms and raising it along the edges here so that you can hide the parking. See, this is a berm along it. You don't see the parking lot behind. You can possibly even depress some of the parking a couple feet in order to block those cars from the road. This is an example of looking in toward a parking lot. This is how much setback we would really like to have if possible. We shoot for this now when we say we have 30, but then when we have a lot of deceleration lanes and things, and we're going to have trucks on this road, you lose half of this to the decel lanes, and we end up with about this much in landscaping along, say, Astoria Parkway. And theirs was done with potable water, and just so you know, ours is capable of being all done, not potable, with effluent as well. Okay, figure out what to do.
You did it.
You got it.
Oh, got it. I think Lainey did it for me. Thank you, Lainey.
I have a question here. South of Yuma, on the Bullard Avenue corridor, isn't that going to be built as a result of a settlement with the ballpark improvement district? Isn't that? We're going to answer that.
Yes, some of that Bullard will be built out.
So some of that curve will be built, and it'll get into, and it'll actually go to Australia.
It will not go into the airport.
No.
But we would have to build the road into the airport. The other question I have, Paula, is aren't there multiple owners of property along Bullard, so that we would have to create some kind of master developer who would incorporate this, or would the city become the master developer?
I will get into that. 2 slides from now, if you don't mind. If I can get into one first, just to show you, I need to show you the effluent. That's my next slide. And then we'll get in and be able to answer your question. I just wanted to point this out, that there aren't that many effluent lines in this area. But there is one going down Bullard. And there's also one going down Astoria, which is where the city center is. But you can do that kind of landscaping and things, even though turf landscaping you saw in this picture cannot be done in the median anymore. But it can be done on the sides and made on the property of the companies, so that they're the ones who maintain it, not the city. Okay, now getting to this slide, which is answering your question, Gary. Yes, there are multiple landowners, which will make it more difficult than other areas where, say, there's one landowner and, say, you could do an improvement district. One of the key things here, we walk a fine line with this in trying to do what Chandler did. Back when Chandler did it, they were able to dictate. They said, this is what you have to do. And because of things like that, now we have Prop 207, which means that there's a protection for their development rights. We can't do things that actually would devalue their property or basically make it so they couldn't sell. That's what I'm saying. We walk a fine line. What we have to do is try to get the cooperation of these landowners if possible. But probably to do that in this day and age, we have to really partner with them. We have to do something, and we probably would, I would say in a sense, put our money where our mouth is, to say, if we do this, we need you to do this. Now, possibly, if we had a lot of money and it was the boom again, well, if it was the boom, we wouldn't need to do it. But would be to possibly say would be what we really would like to do. Number one, right now, we would like to design that road and have the road ready. So it's basically what I would call, in a sense, shovel ready. So should there be grants or any transportation funds that come up that maybe don't exist now, that we could qualify for it and possibly get that road then to qualify for it. If
Paula, at this point, we have no studies done anywhere that we can qualify for shovel-ready. In the
No,
city.
it's not been designed.
We have nothing, guys. So if any federal funding comes without this, we're not even in the running.
So our engineering department is estimated, based upon the design we gave them, and even including fountains at two corners that we would put in as a city, and say a roundabout in the middle or something like that. It was about $600,000 to design. If it was a perfect world and we were able to, we had $6 million to build it, then possibly we could ask, then we'd say, okay, usually the developer would build the infrastructure. Or we build it and then assess them for it. Now, in this case, we're talking about a possibility of maybe someday we build it and we don't assess them for all of it. But we say, in exchange for this and what we've done for you, this is what we expect from you. We don't want a big distribution box sitting there. We really want we want the good landscaping, which takes some of their acreage from the front. We really want high wage jobs, and the criteria of what we would incent there would be based upon the wages and things that we set as a criteria for those development agreements.
So, in a sense, would that be kind of like an overlay district in a way?
Yes.
And, which, I mean, that all sounds very positive and good. I guess my worry is back to getting everyone to stick with it. We've seen that occur with our gateway overlay, for cities.
You're talking about the architectural?
Well, just certain things, yes.
We've had a discussion this week that we hope to have with you is changing that. We're going to look at revising those architectural designs and being a little more stringent on what we want for our city if we want it to look this way. And up to now, we've had some, but we've sort of let them kind of bring in whatever they want. And for this area, we feel like we need to change that. And so we have started that discussion, which we were going to bring to the council.
Some of the PADs weren't as stringent as we'd like, right?
Right. With the recession and the land values diminishing, do we have an assessment of the Bullard Avenue corridor at this point in time? A general assessment. And the reason I'm asking,
you mean valued?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because, you talk about Prop 207 saying we don't want to remove the value. Well, the market has removed the value already for them, so they don't have any incentive to worry about whatever we do is an improvement. And I remember when the Bullard Avenue corridor across from Snyder's was coming in, and they came in 2006 with grandiose office plans, and my suggestion was, okay, let's everybody pool their land and create a general partnership, and whatever gets, and develop it slowly but surely, and everybody shares based on the partnership. That got nowhere because of the egos that were involved in it. So now the question is the city going to be the lead general plan on this corridor by basically we're going to build our infrastructure, and that's how we're going to lead this project to actually happen?
It's one way to go about it, and we're working with planning and zoning to talk about just how we might be able to pull this off. There are new landowners. The problem right now in that area is that it is near the freeway. It's very desirable. It's distressed. 2 major parcels just sold for very, very low amounts. In fact, someone stood up at a meeting recently in the Valley and said if I had money, I would come over and invest in for distribution over in Goodyear. And so someone walked in and said, I'm interested in buying on Bullard to put in distribution. He said, what do you want to see there? Well, we immediately told him what we didn't want to see there. But we have nothing right now to hold their feet to the fire, and something that we maybe could say give them greater height. If somebody wants to could put in a hotel, they can't now. They're restricted to say the 40 feet high. We could give them something that's greater density. If we were able to put in even some of the corner improvements, which would help raise the value of the look of the area, that might help improve the value of their land. So there are a lot of things we need to look at and get into real detail on.
Can I ask why we don't want a distribution center there? What am I missing here?
A 1 million square foot distribution center along there would really be rather large for that area. They're low paying jobs in general. They're not the types of jobs you want right near where you have them all, so that this is where you need your office and your higher employment corridor. You can have manufacturing, a Sub-Zero would fit, well there, even at 450,000, but a 1 million square foot box is huge to have in this area. You would have, say, 600 trailers parked around it at all times. Lots more truck traffic moving up and down that area. So basically, the distribution works better out by the freeway where it is where it seems to be going, about PV 303. It can handle that size box much better than we can down in this area. If it goes to distribution, then it could all go to basically to distribution.
Well, and I completely believe that you don't want to have a hodgepodge of things. I mean, to have it be smart and to be strategic in thinking about where things should be placed. It's understood why a distribution center might want to go there. I get it. But really think of the big picture of what's around the ballpark, what's around the land that the city owns that we've planned for. Distribution isn't the highlight that we would want there. Not that we wouldn't want the jobs, not that we wouldn't want it. And but we have plenty of city to help guide those type of projects.
I think it would help the new council people. Remember the presentation from the developers of that area down Bullard, where they showed the mixed use and the corporate? We have that somewhere, don't we?
Yeah, in fact, I think you were on the
You were
commission
on,
at the
but
time.
it would
I'm not sure we're looking quite at that look.
No,
but
we're not. But it
They
gives
didn't
them.
want
They have
Southwest
no
Country
idea.
side.
They have no idea what's been discussed before. If we could just kind of brief them on sort of what the vision was. No, that's not exactly what. But it certainly is above distribution and those companies being located there. And I think it would help them visualize a little bit more.
Plus with CTCA and everything else that's around there, I mean, there is a vision. We're just slowly getting it there.
But
Does that answer your question?
it certainly makes more sense. It does make some amount of sense from a logistical standpoint. You've got I-10 right there. We've got the airport. I mean, we are positioned to be in that business, which just geographically.
In what business?
In the logistics business.
Okay.
I mean, that, unfortunately, geographically, we are perfectly aligned for that. And I'm not saying we want that necessarily in our main corridor. I'm concerned about, we're going to hold out for the high-wage companies. Everything that we've heard for the last week during the economic updates from GPEC and Westmark and whatnot was high-wage companies, and they're not looking at Arizona. So I hate for us to
Well, I would say
out
we may
for
be
that.
saying that, but it certainly hasn't stopped GPEC from searching out. And in the international side, they are really progressing, and we're going to host a number of nations this next week at GPEC. You want to?
Can I say something, Mayor? I appreciate all the comments, and they're very good comments. It's a difficult economy. We all realize that. I think the point that we're trying to make, to keep it short and brief, is that what we're trying to do is say we don't want to be dominated by distribution. We obviously want it in some areas. This is an area where we believe over time the city has a significant opportunity to create definitely a premier business park. And you're right, Gary, it definitely takes, I should say Councilmember Gelser, excuse me, for being so informal. You're right, it takes partnership with those landowners. You got a mix of landowners there and a mix of agendas that they have. The one thing they don't have, they're definitely land rich, but they're infrastructure poor. They need infrastructure. Deals that would go there today don't go there because they're infrastructure poor. And someone could come, one of those big guys could come and start that corridor. What we want to do is talk with those landowners, sell this vision to them, partner with them to some degree in terms of infrastructure so that it's not dominated by that in the future, which I think would be a miss by the city if we allow it to be dominated. Now, obviously, that takes landowners. They have to agree. We've got to come to some agreement. But over time, I think it definitely has the opportunity to create a premier business corridor to attract the density of jobs that you want. Not to say we don't want those other jobs, because we do. We have them in places in the city. But given the airport, the things that Paula mentioned, we have, I think, a significant opportunity here. It will take time. It will have to do it right. But if we can bring infrastructure, we have an opportunity, I think, to partner with the landowners to allow it to happen over time.
I think you just echoed a conversation that probably took place years ago in Chandler,
You're right.
and that's how they got what they have.
Chandler was able to do some things that you're not able to do today because of Prop 207. And in fact, you might say Chandler's one of the reasons why we have that law today. And so it's going to take, different agreements today in order to reach those things. I think we need to have those conversations with those landowners and talk about the possibility. And we know it's not something that we have this year. Maybe we have a portion, maybe we have design, but over a period of time, if there's a long-term commitment by the city, let's see where that can go with these property owners in discussion.
Well, I'm sorry. We'd be shown we had a vested interest in it, too, by putting it in.
Sherry?
I have two questions. First of all, I think it's a good idea. My question is, what would be like the time frame to get this in? Because obviously this is a long-term project, but we don't want to be on the backside when the economy picks up and people do start investing that we haven't even started putting in infrastructure. And then the second question is, have you had people, or just from going to the convention, say, well, that would have been a nice area, but have you had those, not specifics, but have you kind of had those conversations?
Yes, we've had people look at the Bullard corridor, and then they found out how much infrastructure they needed to put in and said, well, we'll look elsewhere.
We've also had major distribution centers look at the Bullard corridor.
And they went elsewhere.
Which is
But
good.
they stayed in our city. Right.
Yes, Councilman
I
Campbell.
just have one, not a question, an observation. We need to look at infrastructure, not as an expense, but without it, we cannot be competitive.
It's an investment.
It's an absolute investment. And even if we do a little bit at a time, we've got to get started, because without it, the companies are not going to come and wait for us to build it. And technology is here to stay. We need the conduit. We need the broadband. We need it all. And we need to, if we're going to develop smartly, we need to put that in and try to recap if we can. And if not, it is an absolute investment for the city.
This map is important to look at.
This is-
Councilmember Campbell.
Wait, before we,
Wait. I want to go, but I want to stay with the Bullard Center for a minute. In March, I understand we're going to get a presentation for the Phoenix Goodyear Airport Master Plan. Is that's correct?
Yes.
I served on that committee as one of the Goodyear representatives in helping to draft it, so I kind of know what it looks like and where. And I want to make sure that during that plan, when that's presented, we come back to the Bullard corridor, because those two pieces, if you look at the airport master plan and you look at the Bullard corridor, you're going to see that they actually tie together, and the rest of the council hasn't seen it. I think Mayor Lord may be the only person who's actually seen this before, and some people who are no longer on the council.
You're absolutely right, which is one of the reasons we were going to have the airport before we did this, but we switched it. But if you look at this map again, this is where the development is on the airport now. This is where the future development is on the west side. we've had a discussion with the city of Phoenix recently, a lot of people from the airport part of Phoenix, and they're working on a business plan for the airport. When we told them about our idea, about our idea of coming in down, we'd prefer to come in here with the entrance. We can come down, if we can't get cooperation here, we can come with an entrance right here along within their fence line. But when we talked about Bullard corridor here, they were very excited. And they said, that might really help, because our money to do this is still in the CIP, but it's not in the current 5 years, it's in the out years. And, projects come in and keep moving it out. So if Phoenix knows that Goodyear is working to come down and meet us, that possibly will help us keep that money in the CIP or move it up in the CIP. So that's why the two really are tied very closely together. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about the master plan, the next one. Thank you. Good straight man.
Thank you, Gary.
I have a question. Why the curve in the road? Because
There's some sort of building there.
That's existing today.
That's existing. That's
I know,
the
but
road,
it's-
but that's the road that was designed for the ballpark and
Okay.
for development.
so it just come off of that road then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a vision. I have a vision of it coming straight down and seeing the airport, something big at the end. But
That road continues to Astoria Parkway.
Paula,
yes,
does infrastructure down Bullard, et cetera, does that have to include a roundabout and fountains?
no,
Good.
it doesn't have to include a roundabout, and it doesn't have to include fountains. We're just looking at doing the fountains from the standpoint of increasing and getting to that corporate look faster than we would otherwise.
Okay, and
Even
When
though
you have a
we know
day
they're
off,
not-
just take a drive to Chandler and drive up and down the roads and just look at some of their entries there. They were there before those buildings were there, and just it'll give you a really good impression of what it takes.
but, that to quote, Mr. Fischbach, they don't have a ballpark to fund, and that
You know what? We
That's a
have
big
got to
piece of it.
stop using the ballpark for everything. It
I
is what
understand.
it is, and it doesn't mean that you stop developing your city because you have a ballpark. We need to work through it, and we need to put it on the work session. And Joe, you had a great idea, and I talked about the city manager about having some financial plan in place on how we address this when it comes 2017, when it comes down 2030. And I think we need to do that. But you just, in my view, and I know where you're coming from, but you just can't let one thing destroy anything for your city in a vision. We will have to work through some of these problems. It's not going to be easy, but it shouldn't stop us from progressing economic development.
I'm not, again, I'm not suggesting that, but I think for us to try to compare what happened in Chandler 10 years ago versus what we're able to do today, that's apples and
No,
oranges.
what I say about Chandler is for you to go take a look at how you feel about the impression that it gives one when you're driving. Think of yourself as an investor or a company wanting to come in. I'm telling you to just look through those eyes of some of those areas. I'm certainly
There's
not
areas-
comparing the financial one. I think we're all realistic that it's not the same. Should we need to go down?
We did have a client who literally came in and said, as he drove down his Cotton Lane, and said, "Where's the landscaping around here?" And he ended up in Chandler. So he was Chinese.
It's called
from
visual.
a Chinese
It's
company.
visual. People you have to give them something visual to hold on to.
I just want to say, I understand the point because we do have the stadium. We have that debt. It's there. It's not going to go away. But I think we all have to look at this like, how can we make more money so we can pay that off? And I
Invest.
think you've got to do it. And you know what? We start small. We get something in there. Maybe the first thing you do put in is the monument. So you do have that vision. When you get people interested, they see people putting infrastructure in. We get the businesses. And then it's kind of like a growing effect. Because at Chandler, the Intel came in, I think it was in the 80s. And before that, people used to say, I've lived out here. You've lived out here forever. It was like, why are people moving to Chandler and Gilbert? There's nothing out there. And then they put the infrastructure, and they got these businesses, and they, our economic climate is not the same as anybody's ever, and it won't be ever again. But I think we've got to at least try to move forward as an investment.
I mean, we might even look at using that entryway, using some of the money that we use for art and making it, tie it in with something to do with how we've been progressing in the city with the different art features. Why couldn't that be part of it? There's some funding there. It would give versatility to them to come up with. So, I mean, there are other things we can be looking at. Joe?
Just a comment, piggyback on what Gary is saying. I think some of them aren't coming. I agree, because there's no infrastructure in there, whether it's big box or whatever. What I'd hate to see happen is have a plan for putting infrastructure in without an agreement with all the landowners, and in comes the big box, because now we made it attractive for the big box to go in because we didn't do the due diligence ahead of time to get agreement on all the others. So I think it's comprehensive. I think first you got to figure out how to get agreement from all the landowners. At the same time, you decide on what it's going to look like, so you get a buy-in, and then third, figuring out how you're going to have to finance it. But it's all going to have to be comprehensive, because if if you don't, you can make it so attractive, you may get what you don't want without the initial buy-in. So I think it's comprehensive. All that has to happen at the same time, for whatever it's worth.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is the conduit fiber map in the city, and as you'll see, the red is basically the conduit, where conduit is filled with fiber. Black is where it's conduit but no fiber, and you'll see it down Bullard is red, and then the areas that we show in pink with numbers next to them are the areas that, from an economic development standpoint, we feel we need conduit, with fiber in area 1, which is along Yuma, and 2 up by PV 303. Then down along Broadway, we have people coming in now looking at that area, and 4 would be getting it over along Elwood to those companies over there.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, when we were in Fort Collins, we did a fiber loop around the entire city, and that enabled the Hewlett-Packards, the Agilents, et cetera, to all tie into it. This is a very fundamental requirement of infrastructure today, and I was pleased as I started looking at this to see how much is being done and in the right places. I mean, so we aren't just naked with infrastructure. We do have some good infrastructure. We're meeting now as a staff also to determine, we put in, when we do new roads, all of this is 2 2-inch conduits for city, and that we assume will be plenty of fiber forever. And then we also require 2 1-inch conduits that stay dark, i.e. no fiber, for the private sector. We're taking a look now as to whether or not those should be enlarged in future projects. But we do have this plan that's been being ticked away as the years have gone by. So good for us.
And what John is talking about in Fort Collins, by doing the loop, it gives them redundancy. Redundancy is the one thing that we have to look at. Is it coming from 2 different directions for them?
Paula, do you have a dollar figure on doing, 1, 2, 3, and 4, or?
No, we haven't gotten that far yet.
But
We just put this together.
But we will. You'll come
Right.
up with a dollar figure. Thank you.
Paula, do you plan on, once you start moving, say 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sure you're going to look at partnerships to see if there's any way we can partner with, whether it's Cox or an independent company or APS, whoever, and then perhaps we can negotiate that the city has certain rights on the broadband so that we at least have the edge on some of the infrastructure so that we can perhaps go after even the larger companies.
Yes, and this is the way the city, from the conduit, this is the way the city can make money eventually.
Absolutely.
We only have 2 carriers right now. I mean,
Right.
it's Cox and CenturyLink, but in the East Valley, they have 5 and 6. So
Right.
we have to
Okay.
prepare for the future in this case.
Good, thanks.
Yes, Bill?
We laying conduit during the construction of the 303?
Yes, we've negotiated with ADOT for that.
Okay, I'll quickly go through the rest. One of the initiatives is branding. Basically, we branded ourselves. We spent the past 2 years. We're lucky. Many cities are struggling to try to brand themselves. One of the things is an idea we have, and we're working towards trying to come up with a banquet and awards, trying to get our businesses to come together as a group say every other year, so that we can the city can give out awards for leading edge technology that our businesses have. From a retail standpoint, Barb Moss was our retail person. She left a couple years ago. Since then, and there's been little activity. So one of the things is we have to redevelop the relationships with the broker network that she had. We have always attended the International Council of Shopping Center trade shows. It's important that we do that. We're going to keep doing that. We promote Astoria Falls and all our other shopping centers to retailers when we go to that show in Las Vegas, and then they have a one in California as well. We're going to better utilize. We have software now that we have Mary as an assistant. She's just a whiz, and we're going to be able to see gaps in the marketplace with our software and go out and demonstrate that to retailers, showing them you're here, 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 and here. You're not here. And I appreciate all the wonderful things you said about what we could help Mace Rich with. Last time, truly, they have probably the best research and resources, better than we have in many cases, but we will provide them with all of our housing stats. That's really what they need from us. Another one is tourism and hospitality. We haven't done a lot of that, but that is a way to bring money in the community. I think we have someone on the council who understands that concept very well in our vice mayor, and she's basically chairing the tourism subcommittee for the chamber. In that case, we're undertaking and we're partnering with other cities, ASU, also the Southwest Valley Chamber and the Buckeye Chamber, to do one of the largest tourism studies that's ever been undertaken in this area. It'll be a year-long study. And we've also, in order to support our spring training, finally put out a visitor guide where we've distributed that to the Fan Fest in Ohio, because that's where we need to bring these people from. We need to teach Ohio to come out to Arizona. As an Ohioan, I know that. It's a tough sell, but we have to train them to come out. We also have been approached by someone who was interested, came and said, we're thinking about a hotel conference center. Where could you put us in 18 months, So they thought they talked about, we saw a plan at the ballpark. Well, maybe that's right, maybe that's not the right place. We know that CTCA has talked about a conference center. These are the types of things where maybe we can broker and put people together. So we would be looking at that. The other thing is resorts. Resorts may not be building now, but they will be building again. We have never been proactive as economic development going after resorts. It's something that I would like to consider. I don't say that we know how exactly. We'd have to consult some people on how to be smart in doing this, but it seems like it's the right time.
I think the last time was the King property.
Right.
Well, and back to we used to attend the Valley Hotel and Resort meetings all the time, and just being part of that group, because there's no doubt having a resort in our Astoria area is prime for it.
Okay. The other initiative is business and retention expansion. We do, as you know, we do incentives for businesses we're trying to recruit. One of the things we want to look at is, can we develop a program for our businesses that exist here, based upon a criteria of how many jobs, if they're going to expand, say how many jobs they're going to provide, what are the wages there, and determine whether they qualify for a program. Possibly, we don't do expedited TIs right now because we don't seem to have the staff for it. They're pretty much concentrating on the big ones that we're bringing in. Because we're so active bringing in the big ones, it means that there's really not the staff to work on the business side. But we do need to work on trying to get in that direction. Business assistance, as you know.
Paula, could you just drop back that slide one? I like the idea of developing video for businesses. I don't know if we have any conflict legally with that and how that would work, but I like the idea of putting it on the web to promote them. So,
we are working. A lot of us went to Global Organics and got familiar with it, and they're very excited. It's a very exciting business. We're doing our first video will be on them, and we'll feature what they do. It's a very interesting company. I don't think we have any illegal anything.
No. I mean,
conflict of interest, but
no. But I just think that's
it's a matter
great.
of how many we can get to.
Right. I think the more the merrier, especially on the diverse, and hopefully others will pick it up, see what we have, and lead to leads, et cetera. So.
Right. Business assistance, Tina's in the audience. She's our business registration person. She moved up to economic development today. She's going to be our first point of contact. And now business advocate has always been important to the council. You gave us that FTE, and we sort of switched it around to DPA, which I'll talk about in a minute. But we worked with finance to bring that FTE up so that we were able to still bring the business advocate up. We have to work and promote the fact to the public that economic development is that first line, first point of contact, and that will be Tina. A key idea, though, one of the things, develop small business seminars with SBDC, that's the Small Business Development Council. They work with Astoria Mountain Community College, and they have someone who advises small business. In Surprise, they have a full-time person who does that. They were only able to finance a half-time person at EMCC. That person also has a job. We're not getting as much out of that as we had hoped for. One of the things I'm going to probably ask, we've talked to Avondale too, and we haven't talked to Buckeye, but we may talk to them, is possibly having the three cities go together to fund the other half so that we can have a full-time person here. What we were trying to do was have that person do regional small business seminars for us, because we're all cities tapping the same people to try to come to our individual seminars. It makes more sense to have the regional ones rather than each city host their own. And so we haven't been successful in the first 6 months of doing that. So we figure we're going to have our own in the second 6 months, but we're going to hopefully work toward trying to get a full-time SBDC person.
Excuse me, Paula, would you take this opportunity to introduce Tina?
Okay. Tina Daniels, would like to stand? Tina had started the business registration program, has done that for at least 3 years now. 6 years. And so she promotes that. We were always very active with her in helping promote it and help the businesses understand why it's important to register. So she's now going to be doing that probably 3 to 4 months out of the year is when she really does business registration. And the rest of the time she'll be doing the small business advocate work.
Great, welcome.
Thank you, Tina. Business development initiative, the process. We knew when we did 101s with the mayor, especially we found out that we needed some work on business friendly. So one of the things that you had given us the FTE for the business advocate, we felt that it was key to take that FTE at the time, turn it into a DPA, someone who could handhold the clients through our process, figure out our process, see if there were any ways to improve it, make sure the client is kept informed at all times. And so we hired Peter Plant on contract this year to do that work. It's been very successful, and I think we've made headroads. We're still working on this process and in trying to come up with competing development programs to keep us competitive with other cities. And we will be hiring this position full-time soon to try to come in May, June, and shadow Peter while he's still here. Workforce, the last one is workforce development. We work continuously to see if we can improve workforce. Astoria Mountain Community College is considering a manufacturing program. That would be perfect for our area since that's what we certainly have a lot of manufacturing. We've also talked to West Mech, who are actually creating individual schools now, not just virtual schools, in different cities, in Tolleson, Freightliner, in Surprise, in Glendale and Aviation. We've asked them to consider a school, what would work in Goodyear. We said we'd love it to be engineering related. So we've just started talks, but Diane is very amenable to working on this with us. The other thing that I want, Westmark has done a study in the past. Harry was instrumental in getting this study done where we looked at the industry that's in the West Valley and the types of people, the types of jobs that are employed there. One of the other things we know, we have 75% of our population commuting out. It's the same in Peoria and the other cities. One of the things, and it could be very expensive, but I'd like to find a way to try to do it, is to do a study as to what skills do we have with our residents here? What is it that we truly have in our communities so we can go out, show companies that those people with those skills actually live here and recruit the companies to match those skills? That's not going to be cheap and it's not going to be easy, but it's like something I really want to start exploring.
I was just going to say, things that seem to be more and more important is that if you can find it regionally, that seems to be where the money is.
Right. This would
to help
definitely be a
it.
regional
Yes.
or even a
Yeah.
West Valley
That's a
effort.
great idea. I really think that's a good idea.
And lastly, we need policy direction. For sure, on the university recruitment, we need to know whether we want to start that soon. Are we at the right phase to do that? We know, I know I'm going to find costs for you, get back to you with costs.
Yeah, I think that some of the information they've asked for tonight needs to come forth before they could even come close to making a decision on that.
And we need to get you costs, I think better cost on, say, Bullard Avenue for the road design.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if now we can be working on some sort of program for incentives for smaller businesses, even if it isn't expedited, which really requires a lot of staff work. We can look for other ways. Okay.
Everybody shaking their heads on yes on that? Yes, Sherry.
It's something you've said a couple times that kind of, because I see economic development is what's going to get us out of this. You know, we're just either going to putz along the bottom for the next 3 or 4 years, or we can start to go up, and I think that's very important. You said a couple times about the lack of staff, and that concerns me that your department or your division, and nothing against you guys, I don't know if we're giving you the resources.
Not my lack of staff.
I mean, just in that area, the tools that you need to make this happen. I don't know if you guys have the sufficient staff, because you said you couldn't make a few of the conferences that you usually go to. And I'd like to get numbers on what they need to do this.
Well, they'll have a replacement. Why don't you
But one of the
address
things
that
is
one?
Paul left, and so that created a problem because we were down a person. I will say that we have
Paul left, Nora's now left. I mean, so
Yeah, I'm now
it's
PIO,
lack of
so-
staff in reality, but we're recruiting for them now.
I would say one thing the city did really right is when the recession came, most cities laid off. They're in almost an entire economic development department. This city didn't. They did the opposite. We beefed up, and we combined it with communications, which has allowed us to do more than we would have otherwise. That's how we were able to brand ourselves and do all these things. When I've said staff, in a sense, it's usually in the community. It's in the inspection community development area, because it takes a lot of staff to do expedited timing, to do plan reviews and inspections on an expedited basis. And that's where we're more limited than, say, in my department.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I think it's important that for me that you guys have the tools, whether it's there, if we get more, then we look at that, bringing that on as you guys bring more. Because if you're saying, yeah, we can do all these expedited permits and we don't have the staff to do it, because I think you guys do a great job. I just want to make sure we've got the tools there.
I would say, though, if we get in a jam like that, let's take a look at contracting, because there are people who do that work. So that may fill in the span instead of, adding to our fixed costs, something that you could, pick as the ebb and tide, goes through.
Is that the end of the presentation? Is there
Finally.
any more questions? I know we've kept you, but I think it was worthwhile. Everybody agree? I think that was a great presentation. Do you have
Thank
one
you.
other question?
No, I just wanted to thank you for being so thorough and explaining it into a lay language that I could understand and our public could understand.
That's because Harry's had to do that for me over the past years.
Well, Harry, thank you. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation.
If we may, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break before. Is everybody fine? Some of the council people would like to do that. So 5 minutes, be back at the table. Thank you.
So an hour and a half is fine now. It was great. I mean, but yeah, but how do you deal with this concept?
They're on?
Talk to,
Okay.
Talk,
Where
talk
do I
into
talk
the
to Eddie?
Just talk in the sky, Eddie will hear you. He's everywhere.
Now he'll hear you.
We'll go ahead and start the meeting. I'm sure Wally will be here in just a moment. Here she comes. Yeah. The next presentation will be about our city manager, provide updated information on the strategic priorities that the council created in June 11th. Again, this might be one of those discussions that will take a little bit longer. Please, there has been some question of what a strategic plan is, and there are two ways to look at this. There's kind of an overall general look at it, and then you see the next slide, and it kind of gets more into the guts of the strategic plan. So, John?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. And in addition, I'm going to pass this off to Paul Louisi in a moment. But in addition, what this is just a second effort at our draft. And that's why we met with the individual council members as much as possible, just to show you where we were going, to see if we were better on track this time than last time. There's no intention that this is going to be voted on. It's going to come back to the council. So tonight's literally a workshop on this, and so it seemed appropriate that we go through this. And I've asked Paul Louisi to lead you through it. Paul?
Good evening. All right, so how are you tonight? All right, so we're going to go through the plan, and again, it is just a draft, so more of a working draft that we can work through here. Goals for tonight, we're just going to review the strategic plan, and I'll have just a couple examples for you from each priority, and then kind of take some feedback on our next steps. Mission statement, this is something that we heard in the September meeting, was looking at a mission statement.
Just a moment. Can everybody hear Paul in the back? Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Go ahead, Paul.
I got the thumbs up from the fire chief, so I think I'm okay now.
Okay.
Well, he's hard of hearing now.
It's true. Wow, this went down fast. Here we go. In September, we talked about having a mission statement. This is the one that the city has had for quite some time now. Certainly we can look at changing this, but I just wanted to kind of give you a glance of what the mission statement looks like as it currently states. Also, we talked about council priorities. Again, this is something that we walked away with from the June council session retreat, and we talked about the 4 areas of priorities that you had. These kind of help us identify and devote resources to provide core business services and help us move forward. Those are the fiscal, resource management, economic vitality, creating a sense of community and quality of life. We also talked about adding a little bit of a definition to each one of these. So for fiscal and resource management, what we heard from council was the City of Goodyear will implement and maintain innovative and responsible policies and practices to ensure efficient and transparent fiscal and resource management. And then under economic vitality, Goodyear will be the preferred location for diverse, high-quality development in order to provide a sustainable community. Under sense of community, provide a community with unique and energetic places and opportunities to foster an enhanced sense of community. And under quality of life, Goodyear will provide services and programs that enhance the lives of our citizens. And then, like I said at the beginning, and what I did was I took one objective out of each of the priorities and put it up here so that we can see what it will look like on the plan itself. So under fiscal and resource management, I picked the Enterprise Resource Program, which would replace the current HTE program that we have to help increase business process and efficiencies.
When we're using, would you just tell the public HTE? Would you translate that?
That is our finance and HR program that we use, and also for building permits that we use for all of our systems within the city.
And it's commonly referred to in the industry as an enterprise system.
Okay. It's just for the public listening. Thank you.
And then we also have other priorities that are listed under here, such as engaging a skilled and valued employees, creating a professional development plan, Also, the operations center would be under this section, and also sustainable financial relationships between revenue and expenditures.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Okay, so I had actually added to for myself that on the strategic plan 1.4,
Yeah.
which regarding succession, and one thing that I notice, are we going to be okay? Before I get into this, make sure I'm doing it the right way for you. Can I interrupt and
Absolutely.
refer to this
Yep.
document? Okay.
We're looking at the 2-year operational plan right now.
Okay. Am I looking?
And that's page 1.
Yes, that would be on
Okay.
page 1 of 7.
Okay, but within, I guess, no, it doesn't match, does it?
I can pull it up on the big screen if you'd like.
Okay, wait. Oh, shoot. I just did something wrong.
Just wanna pull it up.
Okay, I had written down 1.4. You had talked about the succession plan, and I'm almost there.
What about sustainability?
4.2.
Well, it was regarding looking at department heads. Okay, identify key positions that will need to be filled in next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it says develop a succession plan, professional development plan to fill those positions. However, you could have positions that aren't necessarily going to be needed to be filled in 2 to 5 years, but say something happens to that person in that department and you don't have a successor. Because you're saying look at only key positions that you identify as needing to be filled in 2 to 5 years. Well, say something happened to somebody that nobody planned on needing to be filled in 2 to 5 years, but according to this, those are the positions you're only looking at for the succession plan. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, and I guess it's probably being a little short-sighted in the writing of this. I can probably improve that a little bit. But I think one of the examples that we have currently right now is somebody from engineering has gone out, and we have some redundancy built in within the departments to be able to backfill that. And then that occurs all the time, and that is part of the professional development plan that would be included. But I think it was important that we identified that there are some key retirements possibly coming up in the next few years. So those are the ones I was concentrating on. But you're right. Each department is going to have a professional development plan as well to help backfill.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, that every department had a succession plan to it, that we weren't caught off guard. Larry might want to, retire in 2 years, but you may be here for 20 years, and then in 8 months you give us, hey, I'm going off to Florida. So, we need to have, but that's my point, is we just need to have for every department. I don't want to see that occur again. That
right,
leadership didn't make that go forward.
One of the big things about a strategic plan, at least at the council level, is it then allows the directors to work towards that plan. So now they have the priorities that are set by council. Then we can kind of make sure that we are in correlation with your plan. So currently the directors are starting to develop plans within the departments right now.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to say just those positions. We can just say department.
Correct.
Just a quick add on the fiscal and resource management. I agree the HT is something you really need to take a look at. But also, I think we've had this discussion before. Our local sales tax is one of our largest contributor to our general fund. I don't know, is it 50%, somewhere around there?
54.
Okay, 54%. And I guess one of the things I was hoping we would look at, because, I did a conversion many years ago when I was in Glendale, and I'm a firm believer there's money in efficiencies if we did that or had somebody doing it for us other than the Arizona Department of Revenue, and it could be quite sizable because the information you got if you're doing it yourself. If we're at least looking at the possibility of what it would take, can we? Because I know there's been some changes down at the state legislature, what we can and can't do. But because it's such a large percentage and because of the information that comes across from Arizona Department of Revenue, which I think is very slight and does not give you the information you need to really do a good administration of our local sales tax, that we at least take a look at that from a fiscal and resource management.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't know if I saw a question coming.
Well, trying to figure out when, I guess now's a good time. One of in the general heading of fiscal and resource management,
Yeah.
we have 4 subcategories: sustainable financial relationships, engaged and valued employees, the new enterprise resource system,
Right.
and the professional development plan. One of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about in June was streamlining processes, saving time and saving costs, increasing revenue. That's not listed anywhere in this document. We talk about the employees, we talk about relationships between revenue and expenses, but we're not talking about very specifically streamlining operations. And I know you guys put the weeds up there, so I'm going to jump in it. We broke it 1.1, we broke down into 1.1.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and none of those address streamlining operations. They talk about developing plans, 10-year revenue projection, which I'm not sure 10 years is a good length of time, but prioritizing programs and services. We're not looking anywhere at efficiencies, and we kind of identified one the other night, or at the last work session, when we talked about sending only 1 officer instead of 2, or eliminating the alarm coordinator, because those are efficiencies that are a fiscal issue, and we're not addressing those anywhere.
We can certainly add those in under the fiscal and resource management.
Agree.
Okay. So then,
Anything else on that section? Go ahead.
okay, so this is just an example of what it would look like under that objective to implement the enterprise replacement program. So this is what it would look like, and you'd have the 1.3.1 as Councilmember Stipp alluded to. So each section is lined out for everybody, and then what year it would either begin in to work on that program, and then also there's another section there that would show who is the department that's responsible for that, and then the status. So we can certainly come back to council members with status updates.
And there's one also, Mayor and I were talking this morning, the one other that we'll need to add is the ballpark financing. So that should be added in here.
I was looking for that. I'm having trouble getting it on there. And what was that? Do you remember where we?
I think it was 1.3 something, but I've got it in my notes.
Yeah, and that really originally came from Joe, and I think it's a good idea that we prepare ourselves and start with some kind of plan on how we're going to handle this in the oncoming years.
May I ask a question? Do
Yes.
you think the 10-year revenue expenditure projection is a viable number? Why 10 and not 5? How are we going to know what we don't know tomorrow, let alone 10 years out?
Certainly, this is the discussion with finance that we had during this program.
We already do 5, and so we think that 10 is better because it does take a longer look, and obviously you have to keep changing it frequently as the time goes on, but at least it allows you to look forward to see where you're going financially. So,
Well, I guess the other reason about the 10 is because within those 10 years, we have the situation with the ballpark, with the STA not coming into play yet, and so that's something we do have to be looking at.
Yes, Bill.
Need to throw an absolute kudos out there, though, and I talked about it in our individual group, and I think Councilman Pizzillo can support this, back me up on this statement. HTE has to be replaced. It is a I don't know that it even worked when it first came out into the city, but if for me, and I hope that the rest of the council looks at that, this has got to be a priority. And I mentioned during the session that I was in with the other council members that we cannot analyze this to death, though. We've got to get a move on it. And there are other enterprise programs that are being very successfully used in the valley, and I think we that and analysis time needs to be short, and we need to move because we're not just not, it's not getting it for us.
I think it's fair to say, Madam Mayor, members of the council, that HTE has never achieved its full potential that was promised to the city. And we've had it, what, 10 years, 12 years?
Councilman Gelser.
When we work on budgets with this strategy, one of the things I'd like to see is a more accelerated utilization of the funds. I mean, what has happened in the past is we'll plan it in one budget year, and then we'll plan it, and then the next budget year we'll start implementing it, and we lose all the momentum. And so my suggestion would be that let's try to figure out a way to allocate money to both plan it and start the implementation at least in the first year, because it may only take you 6 months to find the right piece of software or the right enterprise solution, and then let's move on. Let's start moving to make it happen.
Okay, understood. Next section is the economic vitality. The one that I pulled out of this one was to promote tourism in Goodyear and the West Valley. And again, there are other objectives in each of those, like opening the mall, establishing employment corridors. But again, I just pulled up tourism so you could get a look at what that would look like. So here it is, how it looks like in the plan itself. So under 2.3.1, we would partner with the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce to attract funding, and then those kind of fall in line below that. Again, this is something that's ongoing now, so this is a look of what we're actually doing right now with promoting tourism in the Goodyear Inn and the West Valley.
What is the West Valley Tourism Task Force?
That is something that Paula's group was working on to help promote the tourism in the area.
Would have liked to have known about that. Thank you.
Why don't we just, at the moment, Paula, can you come up? Do you have anything to address on that?
It's the subcommittee that I talked about before, and we used the word task force. It's your subcommittee. That's what we're referencing.
Okay.
Southwest Valley.
Well, that's what you're calling is the West. Okay. If you had said chamber, then I would have figured that was the same thing.
That's what it should have been. Southwest Valley
I'm seeing
Chamber.
it as two different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Okay.
I'm like,
Thank you,
there's
Paula.
another one out there I don't know about. Thanks.
Okay, next would be under sense of community. Okay.
Sorry.
Could we go back? There's one more question from Council.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
No,
You
go
start.
ahead.
Well, I had a couple of things. Back to the economic vitality, not to do with tourism, but my screen went blank. Okay. Are you there? No, that's the tourism one. No, I didn't want the tourism. Okay. Well, I had written down about 2.4. You had spoken about roundtables, business roundtables.
Yes.
I guess I'd like to understand a little more, because I actually can see different types of roundtables. I could see a roundtable of businesses from different industries all sitting at the same table talking about things. But I'd also think that it would be good for industry-specific roundtables, like if you were to have a roundtable discussion of just all of our manufacturers in town, or you were to have a roundtable discussion of just all the distribution centers, industry specific, where they actually got to know each other better also, and we were helping that industry. That was just something I was thinking about. Also, 2.4.3, you had spoken about surveys. And I know that I brought it up within our meeting, was that I don't know that the small businesses are included in those surveys. It seems like it's the larger companies, and I totally understand that, but we're missing out. If we want to help and retain our current businesses, we need to be speaking to the dentists, or we need to be speaking to the restaurants. We need to be, we need to know what's going on within our community, and they should be part of that survey.
Absolutely.
And on that same line, though, I think sometimes by combining, and we felt we had some companies in and we had different companies, and it was interesting to listen to the playoff on each other and what their company could provide them, the smaller company as the business first. So it goes both ways.
Again, I'll go back to the document that we had from the summary of the summer retreat. Growing the base, which is 2.5. One of the things we had talked about was business incubators and doing. I look at this and say, well, we're going to do EMCC and Workforce Connection to enhance our GPEC mission, work with GPEC and Arizona. But what are we going to do here? Is an incubator part of that? That small business connection. I'm not seeing that in here as an overall strategy.
The problem we did find out about that, and we don't have a building in Goodyear that we can bring an incubator in. Avondale's bringing theirs in too, and it's an older building.
And we are cooperatively working with Avondale.
That's right, and we're trying to partner, possibly with that, until a building comes up in good, and that's what they need. I mean, if you Gangplank, if they come, in fact, we ought to have them come talk to us. I think it would be helpful, John, to have them come over and just kind of explain to the council what's going on. But they don't want. In fact, there was an article in the newspaper this weekend about they don't want a fancy building. It doesn't draw the kind of business they're trying to draw in there, and so they want to be in a kind of a redevelopment area, and that's the kind of buildings that and we just don't have anything at this time. Not that we can't keep looking.
Well, and again, it doesn't mean that we can't be strategic about it. And we can't put it on the map and
well,
go
yes,
through
especially since we're working with Avondale. If you want to see
exactly.
that on there.
And we just saw the slide from Paula that says we've got 20% office space vacancy, so we've got to have something. And it just if we're going to something that we talked about, it's certainly personally to me very important. I want to, and if it's not important to the rest of the council, that's okay. Then we don't put it in the plan. But I'd like to see it referenced in here. We again reference a lot of partnerships, and nothing is for the city of Goodyear, and that's what I'm hoping that this plan is going to show us.
I think incubator should be on there. I think back to what Georgia was talking about was that Avondale was able to do it because they owned the building. We don't have those little buildings.
It's not a new office building. It's
Right.
It's the environment is exactly the environment that they feel they can grow.
But when engineering is something that we are highlighting, incubators are something that need to be part of that. So I agree.
Okay. The next section is sense of community. And again, I just pulled out one example. This one is to establish a higher education institution presence within the city. Obviously, Paula just talked about this during hers. And again, we'll look at what an example would look like within the plan itself. And you can see we get down into each one. So policy discussion, like Paula had said, developing the vision alternatives, explore corporate stakeholder partnerships, as you all talked about, requesting of an interest-based on policy direction selection. So it kind of marches down, and as we go through the ideas of higher education within the city.
I have a question, Paul.
Sure.
Okay, so within 3.2,
Yes.
complete a parks master plan.
Yep.
I did state regarding about trails and open spaces. I mean,
Yes.
those need to be interconnected. Right now, we have a separate trails and open spaces. Exactly. We have that document over here, and then we have over here our complete parks master plan. They need to be cohesive. They need to be intermingled. But yet here you have trails and open spaces fiscal year 17-18. So that concerns me.
That was something that I need to to change on that. So that was probably an oversight on my side.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure I got in there that they were done together. Okay. And then, let's see, 3.5, the Loma Linda Park. Did we not, this is just a question, it says bid of construction phase, or bid, I thought we already did that. Did we not already do that?
We've already done that. We've signed contracts.
Oh, okay, so it just wasn't in the status.
No.
So, okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Sense of community. We ended up the 4 strategic priorities that were identified that weekend. Fiscal and resource management, create a hub of services and amenities to create a sense of place, economic development, maintain a strong quality of life. And wordsmithing it is okay because we've got create a sense of community and we have quality of life, which I get. So in the quality of life component, in the description, and we really had a good discussion on satisfied residents with long lifespans, stronger ties with Goodyear, that people can identify with Goodyear as a hometown, feeling emotionally attached and invested in the community. Those were really strong statements that were made that it seems as though they're kind of glossed over in this one sentence. You know, Goodyear will provide a community with unique and energetic places. If I'm a director and I'm going to use this document to guide my future planning, I want to hear those things. Or at least as a city, we're going to post this on the website, say, here's our strategic plan. And I think we were talking that day about really pushing for people to feel emotionally attached and invested in this community. And that they get that hometown feeling. At one point, I think we said we wanted to be the biggest small town community. And it needs to be reflected in one of these 2 areas, and I don't really care which one, but I'm sensing that is missing.
Okay, we're going to add that back in.
I just wanted to add on that one. I think
Did everybody agree with that?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
I just wanted to add, because I think what Bill was saying, that I'm looking at this as a broader community type thing, and then I have Goodyear Ops Center construction design. That doesn't seem like gives me a place of community. So I don't know if that's really, it just seems that's more
That's
of a
under sense of community?
I have it under 3.4.
Yeah, we've moved that to fiscal and resource management.
Okay, because that seems
Yeah.
more like it's a business type, just
Yep.
a building.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay, then I'm fine with that, because I think municipal library, that's the beginning of the city
Yeah.
center or whatever we're looking at as a meeting place. So yeah, I just didn't see how that one fit in.
Okay, and our last section is
I'm
Oops,
sorry.
quality of life.
Well, we're still on quality of life? Yeah.
We haven't hit quality of life
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry. I thought we hit,
It's
I already hit on mine.
sensitivity.
I'm out of the 3s. Sorry.
Okay. Establish a community garden was the one that I pulled from quality of life. And again, you can see all the tactics that are underneath that. Identifying the potential opportunities, conduct an initial analysis, presenting the council for policy direction, priority leveling, and also cost recovery if that's available as an option. And those are the 4 priority sections that we have had in your plan. Now, really, next steps for us.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, back to quality of life. I had 4.2, let's see, establish a community garden program, creating garden areas. That can also be part of our master park planning. And in 4.3, we didn't really discuss this, but I don't know that we've ever actually had a discussion regarding our cost recovery percent. You know, that when we have talked about fees that we charge for programs and they may only be a 30% recovery, are we all satisfied with that? Should that be part of our plan? I don't know that we've ever, and this may not be the time for that discussion, but I don't know that we've ever talked about that.
I beg to differ, Joanne. I think when we had
Maybe I missed it, or remind me.
we had a very long discussion on fees, and I remember Mike Svets coming up and presenting. Some programs got adult sports got presented
right.
got recovered at an 80%, and kids programs that benefited kids in Goodyear got presented at a 30%. And we went through the entire adult we went through the entire.
No, I remember that now. I'm just since everybody was bringing fees back up again, I didn't know if that was we were still all on the same page, that was fine. I'm just bringing it up because I didn't remember if we were all still on that same page. That's okay. I don't mind that.
I'm not sure I want to revisit that one at this point in time.
Okay. Lastly, I just wanted you all to know, back to quality of life, that something may strategically be able for us to look at. ASU is actually partnered with Arizona Action to do, it's actually a regional strategic plan for healthy lifestyles. And that could be something that also goes under our NLC platform on strong families and youth. It's all part of our strategy, and it may be something that it's not completely still in draft form, but it's a 110-page document that ASU did as a study for our region for healthy lifestyles, something that we might look at in the next few months.
Okay. We have a whole section dedicated to the community garden program, and I agree with the vice mayor. But I've been searching this summary sheet, and I cannot find anywhere on here that was identified as something we needed to spend a lot of time on or dedicate resources to. It's not in that yellow paper.
That was actually something in September that we got from feedback from you guys that you wanted to see in this piece. So
Was that just one of many? Is that
Because I don't remember that at all. We're dedicating a whole section of resources and everything in a operational plan to something that.
So there's other things missing, is what you're saying.
Well,
and that's just not a big highlight.
I don't know that it is, and is it a matter of putting it in the parks master plan that looks like a better strategic initiative that way, and that we should be focusing something else on the quality of life? Quality of life has, public safety services have a big impact on quality of life. How we maintain our streets has a big impact on the quality of life. Some of these parkways that aren't fully developed or improved, if you will, affect the quality of life and that whole appearance. I mean, a lot of those things, they're not in here. And now we can argue that that's a day-to-day operational thing that we need to keep the weeds out of the medians. But if the median is unimproved, should we be looking at a median improvement planning program or a street maintenance, something beside putting our effort into the community garden, I guess.
I think that's why I had even stated at 4.2, this may be part of the master park planning, and it's a valid point.
And as far as the medians, Bill, there's a whole section in the capital improvement program addressing that, because that was estimated at $4.3 million.
Yes.
Well, and again, and I just use that as an example,
but that's there.
Is there something that we can do to accelerate that? Is it, it always comes down to the money, but is there other things? We're talking about throwing money down Bullard. That's going to cost $8 million. So are we going to take care, how are we going to prioritize those? And maybe that is what the bullet looks like is we're going to throw a whole bunch of projects up there, and then we need to prioritize them, because there are a lot of them.
Well, I have been writing them. We have HTE, infrastructure, colleges, Bullard, Loma Linda Park, the library, the right-of-way improvements. I mean, I was starting to list them myself. You're right. There are There's only going to be so much money.
And strategically, maybe that's what we need to do, is we really need to have a discussion about what do those priorities look like.
Joe?
Just real quick, under quality of life, and I don't know how it gets into here, but I've always been a big proponent. We need to look like a city that's on the way up, not down. And what I mean in that is code enforcement, and you know how the weeds are taken care of, how the open fields are taken care of, and I know I've had discussions with the city manager regarding this, and I don't know if it needs a whole section dedicated to it, but I believe that's real important for a field, especially as we grow our businesses and businesses look this way. You know, whether it's graffiti, make sure that's taken off real quick. Whether it's the neighborhoods with weed control issues and abatements, whether it's the developers that allow tall weeds as well, not managing that, because that's going to be the feel and the look of the city if anybody coming in and wants to locate here. Not only that, it's a feel good as well for the community when it looks clean. And so I'm not sure where it fits specifically, but to me that's a high quality of life. I want my neighborhoods and right of ways and what to look good, and I don't want to be going around a corner where I can't see it. Like that one time when I left, what was it, 2 years ago, when we were at the ballpark right after 4th of July. There was cars parked off to the right off of Bullard. I knew they were there. I saw their headlights, but I couldn't see the cars because the weeds were so tall I couldn't see on the other side of them. So to me, those are key issues, even in a down economy, to make sure that we stay on top of landowners and we stay on top of that look of the city. And I don't know if you dedicate a whole number to it, but I want to see it mentioned in there somewhere.
Well, don't we have, our survey, didn't that tell what the people feel
Yes,
equals their quality of life?
yes.
Maybe all of those categories are what needs to be under this. I don't know. This is the first time, I knew there was discussion on the garden program, but, I was surprised to see this under
As its own.
as its own.
It's
It's certainly not one of the big, so I don't know which one of you were promoting this or not, so I don't know what your intentions were.
Well, no, that was me speaking about those, and that's why, again, I think it's part of the parks plan. And actually, if you want to go back to the survey, good point. You really need to look at the after-school programs, which was mentioned in that survey, and also the adult services. Those were things that they had.
And I think that's the direction we should take. The people have spoken.
That's very true.
And then let's list those projects that are important to them. Sherry?
Yeah, I guess that's my thing. Reading quality of life, I'm not sure exactly what that section wants to be, I guess is my problem with it. Because we have community gardens, and I agree, master plan. I don't think it's a standalone. It's great to have, but it's not a standalone. And then I have wastewater. It doesn't really seem to flow as quality of life. I was thinking more along, I guess, the survey, what was there, what people would like. Amenities is what I was thinking. I think the wastewater in the streets, that should all go under fiscal and resource management. They're not, I'm not saying they're not important, they just don't fit.
No, but we were going to
flow.
manage those. Those will be managed.
Yeah, those seem like that should be where that should be as well. So I think maybe we need to kind of move some of those around, and it gets more of a flow, because I think what Joe said was very important, and I don't see a bullet for that. And I think that's where the wastewater should go, wherever that is.
Whatever that one is.
Yes,
Number
Councilman
one.
Campbell.
Thank you. I would just like to suggest that we take 4.2 out and maybe make it another one. Community gardens are wonderful, but I think that plan could be suggested or implemented under the Neighborhood Services Division with the neighborhoods. And Parks and Rec, of course, could recommend that we do that. But I don't know that in our master parks plan, we could always suggest that there be a community garden and identify an area within a park project that could be called a community garden. But I think it doesn't. I don't think this is appropriate here.
Gelser, Councilman Gelser.
I just wanted to echo support for Councilman Pizzillo's appearance. Appearance of the city, I guess, overall appearance of the city, however you want to put it in, code enforcement, weeds, median, making sure potholes are filled, that whole kind of thing should probably be a key point in the quality of life. Yeah. Wally has city beautification, so you can throw the gardens in as a sub point underneath that.
Okay.
Okay, I got to put my public safety hat on. We're going to just look at response times for police and fire.
No, it was just an attempt to begin to put some tactics underneath there. Certainly, we can dissect that a lot more and look at other things.
I don't want to dissect it anymore.
Right. Well,
That's why we have professionals.
correct. But I think if we're gonna say maintaining a high level of public safety to keep the residents and visitors safe, that if we are response times is a measure, that we can also look at survivability. We can look at, from an EMS perspective.
Sure.
And Paul, I'd defer to your expertise. But I think there's other things that, if we put it down here, this is what everyone is going to follow. And if we say we only care about response times, then we've got issues. And I think community education is a component of that. Fire prevention is a component of that. I mean, building safety. I mean, there's a big. I hate to be that specific under a subcategory. So.
Would you prefer to have that out of there, or would you want to leave it in?
Well, I think it's a measure, but if there's other measures that we can have in there that tell the council we are providing a high level of public safety, we can meet a response time with one person, but one person to a fire is merely an observer. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
but we've met the response time. So if we can look at other statistics, property loss, heart attack survivability,
Sure.
et cetera.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we're beginning to get some feedback now. Obviously, we would not be ready for the February 13th adoption of this plan. We'll move that back out. However, if you continue to provide feedback through the city manager, that'd be greatly appreciated. That way we can add that in. The next piece we'll also have to start developing on is, as Councilmember Stipp started to talk about, some key performance indicators. So certainly we'll be getting back with you as we start to update the plan. I don't know if you have any more questions for me at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
John, do you have any comments after that you'd like to add?
Not to add, but I do have one comment.
Yes, okay.
I wanted just to bring everybody up to date. I was asked a couple questions about the digital signs. Where are they? We have received our check, as you know, from the FTA for $1.3 million through the City of Phoenix. That's been deposited. The FTA still has not ruled on our request for a digital sign at the park and ride location. I'm not saying that this is a done deal, but we need the permission first for them before we can bring it forward to the council. As of right now, Clear Channel is waiting in the wings. I don't know if they're going to be taking it to the legislature or where, because of the court ruling, but we are still proceeding to get the approval from the FTA.
Okay, good. Any other comments for council, from the council? I think we're ready to adjourn this meeting. Meeting adjourned.